The biggest story right now is the conflict in Gaza. There has been a lot of tough talk this week from Hamas.
If the enemy got into Gaza, our people will fight from one street to the next, from one house to the other, and on every inch of the land.
And of course, there is tough talk from Israel as well.
I can tell you, we have the power, we have enormous power. We can do things which will be devastating. I'm telling them, stop it, we are stronger. There will be more blood there.
When I hear leaders talking big and threatening, and I see the violence between neighbors get out of control when no one will back down, it reminds me of a conflict a little closer to the way I grew up.
Hey, blood.
Of course, where I grew up in L.A., it was the Crips and the Bloods who were shooting each other over a little piece of land. There were helicopters flying overhead and innocent people getting hurt, like in this movie. And it, of course, was a conflict that went way back, and there is still no way to stop, like this young cat says.
Listen, Holmes. See, man, that's just the way the world is, that's it. It's always gonna be gangs, man. There's always gonna be fighting. Nobody's gonna fucking stop it, man. That's just life.
Well, one thing that's true for both Gaza and gangs is people who get shot at, they often want to shoot back. To help me understand the turf war in the Middle East, I have two experts, Rabbi Shmuley Boteach, the founder of This World, the Jewish Values Network, and Irshad Manji of the European Foundation for Democracy and author of The Trouble with Islam Today. So I just want to ask you, it does remind me of the way that I grew up. And there is just a level of vitriol that is frustrating.
You know, DL, I mean, we can all agree, at least on this, that the Middle East is a place of unforgiving complexity. But, you know, this gang dynamic that you're referring to ain't a bad place to start. I recently interviewed a prominent Palestinian leader who took issue with what he called, you know, this tribal mentality, this, you know, clan mentality of his own people. And what he meant was that it's a mentality that, you know, produces uncritical loyalty to the tribe.
Absolutely.
So that even when you know wrong is being done on your side, you're not going to speak up about it.
Right.
Because your security, and not just your identity, depends on having good relations with the higher-ups. That's what happens in the Crips and Bloods, too.
That's absolutely what happens. Shmuley, I read something you said, and you equated the eradication of Hamas to cancer invading the body. And you talked about how if someone got cancer, they would use radiation or chemo in an attempt to snuff out this life-threatening organism. You equated that to Hamas. Having to eradicate, is that not all people, but is that the mentality? Is it the idea? Well,
let's go back to your gang analogy, and I like what Irshad said about uncritical loyalty to the tribe. I mean, what we have to remember is that amidst these tribes are part of a larger family. It's called the human family, and once you violate the principles of humanity, and you forget that we're all just, you know, brothers and sisters, right, that's where conflict's never going to end. And we have to try to make people cognizant of that. Now, the problem with Hamas is that, you know, I'm Jewish. We're part of the tribe where no one wants you, tribe. We go from land to land, DL, and we don't want you in the... And we have this little sliver of land in Israel, and Hamas is trying to say, I'm sorry, you're not Arab, and you're not Muslim, and why are you here?
They don't even say, I'm sorry.
Right.
Just get the hell out of here.
And the Hallmark's car for Hamas.
Yeah. And their drive-by shootings come in the form of 6,000 rockets being launched against civilians.
Right.
Now, Arabs are they are my brothers. Islam's a beautiful, glorious God religion, and when Hamas says, even to the Palestinians, you have to only learn to hate, and your greatest aspiration in life should be to blow yourself up. Palestinian children should be allowed to get an education. They should be allowed to build hospitals and roads, and Gaza should really be a flourishing democracy. But peace isn't going to come to the Middle East, as Golda Meir once said, until the Palestinians, I believe, learn to love their children more than they hate the Jews. And the same thing is true with any mistakes we're making. I didn't want to see the Israeli Prime Minister a moment ago saying, oh, we're stronger than you, we're going to hurt you. Where does that bravado help? I am a short, harmless Jew. DL, you could take me in a second, okay? So we're not here to flex our muscles and to say Israel's going to be stronger than you with helicopter gunships or with tanks. Israel needs to have moral strength. Israel's a democracy.
What would you equate, like what would be an example of moral strength?
Moral strength is that Israel allows every Arab to have an equal vote as a Jew. Israel, of the disproportional representation of the Arab population in the Israeli Knesset. I would even have no problem if there were an Arab Prime Minister of Israel who's dedicated to the Jewishness of the state of Israel. And just like I'm a Jew I understand that we're a minority. If I became the President of the United States, which may happen, DL,
right,
And I'm going to...
Hey, we broke it wide open, baby.
That's right. That's right. I'm not going to suddenly take the Jewish religion and impose it on a mostly Christian population.
Right.
I understand that the majority is not what I am. So, you know, Israel is a Jewish state of Israel that has this Jewish character. It doesn't mean that Arabs aren't equal parts of it. Moral character means you respect everyone's rights.
And
that's
you see,
what it means.
what's going on here right now is something you're rarely going to see on television, right? Which is that a Jew and a Muslim, each of us faithful in our own way, is engaging.
I thought you meant a black dude hosting the show.
Oh, yeah, well, yeah.
I was lost for a moment.
I thought by now that went without saying, but fair enough. That each of us is engaging in self-criticism. Each of us is engaging in introspection, pointing out where our own camps, quote unquote, have gone wrong. We need a hell of a lot more of that.
I never hear a Muslim spokesperson sound like you, or I never hear an Israeli spokesperson sound like you. So, and the problem is that you are reasonable people who are being objective.
Well, we live in the West, and I think with all of its flaws, the West is about I can get on TV, express my opinion.
It's an open society.
And you know,
not have to pay physically or
and I think in my opinion, what Israel's trying to do is create those conditions in the Middle East by just having an open democracy. Israel's far from perfect. It makes a lot of mistakes, but at the very least, it is a democracy. There are 400 million Arabs right now, DL, who live in countries where if they were to go out with a placard in the street protesting their government, they may not wake up to see the next morning, or they'll wake up in a prison cell. Arabs are equal children of God. They deserve the same rights as we Westerners. And I would like to see a liberalizing and a democratizing of these Arab countries. I think that's what will, I mean, you know, Hamas was elected by a democratic majority. But so was Hitler in 1933. That was so you have to also try to elect the right people who don't try to suppress dissent. Right now, Hamas is killing a lot of collaborators. They're just shooting them in the streets for the mere suggestion they're collaborating with the Israelis. I, as a Jew, don't want to see dead Palestinian children in UN schools. That breaks my heart. It violates everything I believe in. But we also have this problem where terrorists are launching rockets from these schools. So Israel has to sort of wonder what should it do.
Let me just add one other thing here, which is that I don't think that we Muslims, even in the West, are taking full advantage of the freedoms of expression that we have here. You see so many Muslims pouring into the streets to protest Israeli actions in Gaza. But the interesting thing is that, you know, hundreds of thousands of Muslims are maimed, raped, murdered, and tortured by fellow Muslims every day. Look at the genocide in Darfur, okay? This is inflicted by, you know, Arab militias, supported by a government that calls itself Islamic. You know, where is the Muslim outrage about that slaughter, DL? And why is it that Muslim lives only count when they're snuffed out by non-Muslims?
You know, I've always said the same thing.
This is what we're doing to ourselves.
But that's the human condition. I will watch people.
That's a tribal mentality.
But everybody has it. Everybody's guilty. I will watch people.
Not nearly as much as in other cultures, I would argue.
I'll give you an example. Yeah. I watch people give T-shirts like they had this red campaign to snuff out violence in Darfur. Young black men are killed all over this country every day by other young black men, and people don't get justice and sense. You let a police officer kill a young black man, we will march in the streets. Lives are lives. I don't care who takes them. And I think as a human being, when I watch this conflict...
This is the tribal mentality again. See, the tribal mentality, Crips and the Bloods, you're defined not by who you love, but by who you hate. So the tribal mentality is you're defined by the other. Conflict is built into the system. And the people who control those gangs, they actually perpetuate their power by perpetuating the hatred. And they indoctrinate, and then you can't speak out against the violence because then you're disloyal to the group.
That is why there is a big difference to be made between identity, which is always constructed in relation to the other, and integrity, which is your authentic self.
Oh, man.
Big distinction.
We have to take you to the Middle East.
No.
Wait a minute. Hold on. If Joe
you know what? This is already scary enough for me. Are you crazy?
We're going to take you to the Middle East, and you're going to do a big gathering and get people to laugh together.
If Joe the plumber can go, why not DL? Give it up.
Thank you, Rabbi Shmuley Boteach and Irshad Manji. Thank you guys very much.